A good morning to you on the business desk at this hour. We turn our attention to the need for the financial service industry to cater to South Africans battling the rising cost of living. Now, this could mean a change in service offerings. The Graduate Institute of Financial Sciences says this is aimed at attracting and retaining increasingly cash-strapped consumers. CEO at GIFTS, Dr. Kreshan Pillay, speaks to us now. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Pillay. It is an important element in the financial service sector in South Africa, given that the South African consumer has been cash-strapped for many years now, over decades, but this particular precarious economic climate means an extremely different type of approach is needed.
Good morning to me. I couldn't agree with you more. As the South African financial services sector, we need to look and be more creative and more robust in how we are gearing our financial services workforce to attract the global consumer needs within the financial services sector. I couldn't agree with you more.
And what are those needs that may need to be adjusted to cater for South African consumers in the current economic climate that we find ourselves, especially on the side of financial services? There's a need, but at the same time, it could be a grudge purchase for many who are struggling financially.
100% to me, and we understand that when things get tough, your financial service products are the first things to go, like your car insurance, your life covers, your retirement annuities, your home insurance covers. And if you look at the current economic situation that we face, as coupled with our climate changes, the need for these covers are so important. And I think what we need to do is we need to look at it at a more formative stage. And when I say formative stage, we need to look at it from an educational perspective. And that educational perspective would be us looking at our students and our graduates and how they are arriving in the workplace and how to create innovative ways to ensure that the consumer is educated. Number one, to understand the importance of keeping their financial services products in whichever way, shape, or form it takes, but also ensuring that our graduates that are entering that workplace and the employees within the workforce are upskilled and skilled to communicate this message to the end consumer. And remember, we are now getting more digitally affluent throughout Africa. And as we get more digitally affluent, we consume information differently. So both the consumer is getting more educated and more savvy, and therefore the person or the financial service providers need to be very savvy in the way they deliver that message, so it's consumed in a way that is appetizing to the consumer, so they understand the importance of their financial service products.
And achieving that would also, Dr. Pillay, speak to a critical change in mindset and behaviors where money is concerned in South Africa. The example that you make of a first-time employee or a graduate going into the workspace as an economic participant, usually in South Africa and historically, it was defined by loans or even the likes of clothing accounts, which one would then have to repay within the first 2 to 3 years of their first employ. How critical is that in terms of a change in mindset as well as behavior?
To me, I think that's very important, but I think what we all need to realize, and particularly the financial services sector, that we all arrive differently. It doesn't mean that I'm a graduate and that you're a graduate, that when we enter the workforce, we're going to enter in the same way. Our social experiences, our economic experiences, and the way we learn brings us in differently. And I think that in what we need to be as a financial services sector is more cognizant of that. And as well as financial service education providers, we need to provide that literacy to our graduates that are entering the market and joining the world, as you say, as corporate citizens and becoming economic contributors. We need to give them that literacy, that soft skills. It's so important, so that they understand, okay, here you understand the technical skills of how to do your job. But these are the other influences from both professionalizing their own financial literacy and many, many, many other factors. So when we're looking at our curriculum within the financial services education space, we need to look at it from a two-pronged perspective. Is how are we creating technically robust individuals But more than that, how are we creating individuals that are primed with the right soft skills to become corporate athletes and really, really be juggernauts in the industry in years to come? And that comes with that soft skills training.
Pardon me for interjecting there, because I'm highly interested in whether this is taking place currently in South Africa. And the reason for asking that question is essentially about money management in line with how one progresses within their career. Is going to speak volumes to how you exit as well as retire.
100%. And then to answer your question, is it being done? So there's many financial literacy programs that are out there, but we need to understand and we need to realize that they are archaic in nature. The way we are learning to consume information is changed so rapidly over the last 5 years because of the introduction of the fourth industrial revolution with fintech and insurtech. So the way we are targeting our consumers now needs to be more innovative and more creative. So to answer your question to me, is there financial literacy available? Yes. Is it being done to the best that it can be done? The answer is no. Do we have a long way to go? I don't think so. I think minor tweaks to what's existing can make a huge difference because, as you very rightfully place, retirement annuity, if you look at the burden on the state as to how many people cannot retire, that is a huge crisis. But consumer education can save this. And also, individuals and financial advisors that are properly equipped to educate the end consumer on how to save for retirement is critical. And that can be done through streamlined programs and programs that are enhanced from an educational provider perspective as well.
So, Dr. Pillay, where does the responsibility lie for financial services as a sector when it comes to a responsibility ensuring that consumers are not maybe approved for funds that really, in actual fact, tighten their belts and unnecessarily so?
Wow, to me, this is a very good question. And I think the entire financial services sector has an accountability. So from the regulator enforcing those regulations, from your financial services providers, your credit lenders, etc., they have responsibilities there. But I think at the foundation, if you teach people the right thing from the onset, how to be responsible in putting together those credit applications, how to do risk analysis and credit analysis better, I think fundamentally the foundations start in the classroom. And that then needs to be carried on into the workplace. And when it's in the workplace, it needs to be enforced in that workplace through continuous professional development. So we all have to hold hands in order to ensure that we do not have those situations. And fortunately, South Africa hasn't been too bad in that regard if you compare us to America and the great American financial crisis that took place. So yeah, I hope that does answer your question.
It absolutely does, and it feeds into my next question about starting this financial literacy in the classroom. It can't be too early, can it? Because for the latter part of our conversation, we've spoken about graduates and first-time workers in the labor landscape in South Africa. But there is possibly a need for an earlier start with financial literacy, even in the likes of high school.
To me, spot on. I think the sooner the better. The financial literacy is such a fundamental and often overlooked. And what we tend to do is, because we have the lack of knowledge of financial literacy in the formative years, what do? We copycat those next to us. And the reality is, are those next to us doing it correctly? More than likely not. So financial literacy, I couldn't agree with you more, needs to start more formatively. And as you progress from high school into an FET college or into a higher education institution, it really needs to be cemented. And that then needs to be carried into the workplace as well.
Thank you so much for that conversation. Dr. Christian Pillay is the CEO at GIFTS, talking to us about financial literacy across the board, essentially, from the education of young South Africans as well as young adults going into the labor market.